Are you tired of thinking about drinking, trying to control it, and ending up in the same loop? Welcome to the Feel Good Alcohol Free podcast, where high achieving women learn how to step out of the stop start cycle and build a life that feels calm, clear, and alcohol free on purpose. I'm your host, Lindsay, accredited sober coach and former high functioning drinker. After more than a decade of drinking every night while keeping up a big career and a life that looked fine from the outside, I rebuilt my identity from the inside out. Now I help women stop negotiating with themselves and trust their own decisions again. This isn't a podcast full of cliches or willpower pep talks. You're getting real conversations, lived experience coaching, and practical tools you can use inside your actual life, not perfect conditions. So take a breath. You're here because you're ready to feel good in your real life. So let's get started. Welcome back. We are heading into the final week of dry January. Okay, if you're listening to this episode during the last week of dry January, there's a good chance one of two things is happening right now. Maybe you are continuing to count down the days until it's over, or you're quietly realizing that something about this month felt better than you expected. And that might be bringing up a whole new set of questions. Maybe you're thinking, what happens next? What happens after dry January? Do I go back? Do I just have a drink on February 1st? Or do I actually have to decide anything? What if I don't want to undo this, but I don't know how to move forward either? I don't actually know what I'm going to do on February 1st without this sort of excuse or thing that has my back called dry January. This week is often a lot harder than the first week of dry January, because in the first week of dry January, you've got this excitement around it because you're going to do something. You're very excited about reaching this goal. But as the novelty starts to wear off, it becomes a little bit harder. And your cravings aren't necessarily stronger, but decisions might start to feel heavier. We don't have to answer to anything that is really deeply true to ourselves. It's just, oh, I'm doing dry January. And that can really bring an ease. But what can often fail us is when we treat that end of dry January as a finish line instead of information to tell us, how do we want to move forward? What do we want to do? When we have a final day to something, our brain logically is like, we're going to drink on February 1st. I had so many breaks from alcohol, whether it was like a dry January or I often would do Whole30s. It's an elimination diet. And so alcohol was also part of that elimination. And I would literally have a calendar, a little printout of a calendar. And on the 31st day, I had like a little wine glass drawing in there. So for me, those types of breaks were very much a countdown until I got to drink again. And in the Whole30 cases, it was until I got to drink and have bread and cheese again. I didn't look at it for what it was. I didn't actually look at, oh, I'm feeling so much better. It must be the alcohol that I'm not consuming. I would look at it as all the things that I was doing and like, oh, I feel so good. But I wasn't really carrying any of those new habits beyond the 30 days. So early January, you've got this structure, you've got the novelty, you've got the external permission, like everyone's kind of doing it and not a lot of people have fallen off yet. And then late January enters ambiguity. Our brains thrive on certainty, rules, structure, familiarity. So you might be going through this thing like, am I going to drink again? Am I quitting? Am I going to let this ride? What does all this mean? And so this discomfort that you might be feeling, it's really normal. I want you to know that you're not different than anybody else if you're feeling some sort of uneasiness here. It's also a big sign that you have a high level of awareness of what you want right now. Because this awareness is everything that you've learned about yourself throughout these last few weeks. And maybe this isn't your first dry January. Maybe it's not your first month-long break. Maybe you did Sober October or Sober September, whatever the things are. And think about what made this one different than some of those other breaks. There might be like a contrast between what you're thinking. Maybe you're thinking, oh, I survived the last 21 days, or I'm surviving this 30 days. Or are you thinking, I'm really learning something about myself this time? I want you to have this reflection about this. These are 3 questions that you can ask yourself. So if you are able to, you could even jot these down, but you'll be able to refer to the show notes to get them. But over this next week, really answer these 3 questions. What felt easier than expected? What felt harder than you thought it would? And what surprised you about yourself? These questions are going to help guide you into what you want to do next. Here's the thing. Information is super useful, but information is not going to just magically make you transform. You want to take these questions, take the answers, see what you're gleaning from them, and turn that into action. It's about making the information actionable, because that is what's going to drive your transformation. Whatever your goals are, you have to take action in order to transform. It's kind of the sad reality of all of this. Now is the perfect time to just take a quick break so that I can tell you about one of my favorite non-alcoholic wines, Saint Viviana, a non-alcoholic wine brand for women who still love the ritual of a glass of wine, just not the aftermath. And fun fact that I just learned, there's actually a patron saint of no hangovers. Her name is Saint Viviana, and yes, this wine is named after her. These are de-alcoholized premium wines, which means the wine comes first and the alcohol is removed later. That leads to less sugar, fewer additives, and a flavor that actually tastes like what you're reaching for at the end of the day. They have a Cabernet, which is one of my personal favorites, a bright Sauvignon Blanc, and a sparkling Chardonnay, all designed to let you unwind, celebrate, or pour a glass without paying for it the next day. Okay, so cheers to no hangovers and better mornings. I love them. I hope you'll check them out. The link is in the show notes. So, okay, let's talk a couple of minutes here about why your brain wants to go back to the way things used to be, the way you are used to living, which involves drinking. It has to do with this fear of failure and the comfort zone. The brain prefers the known over the unknown. And even if the known isn't great, even if you know it's not how you want to be living, it still feels more comfortable. It's familiar. So that's what the brain wants. Familiar patterns equal perceived safety. I mean, we're wired to keep ourselves safe. That's our instinct. When we're developing these new patterns, that's going to equal uncertainty, which gives off a threat response. It says, we're not safe here. Even if it's perfectly safe, it's still unfamiliar. So uncertainty is going to be brought out. Fear of failure isn't really about alcohol. It's about, is this something that is sustainable for me? How am I going to do this forever? What if I can't maintain this? What if I disappoint myself again? What if it was just, kind of dumb luck that this dry January felt a little easier? It is very normal for you to be having all of these thoughts that we can refer to them as self-doubt. These are self-doubt creeping in because you're starting to get into the time where you don't have the safety net to say, I'm doing dry January anymore. And it forces us to think about the future, think about what's next. So high achieving women, we're always like, okay, what's next? What's next? It's like we spend very little time celebrating our accomplishments, and we move very quickly into thinking about what we're going to move on to next. So if that sounds familiar, I see you. That is absolutely me. So we have these like prediction errors, and our brain hates not knowing what's coming next, which is why we want to figure that out so quickly as high achieving women. We're like, I need to know. I need to know. I want to know what's going on. When we think about, okay, well, what's next? Maybe what's next is you thinking, I don't want to drink. I don't want to go back to drinking. Now your brain is starting to get worried, like I was mentioning earlier. Is this sustainable? Is this something that I can do long term? Because you are looking at perfectionism as that safety mechanism, all or nothing, all or nothing. And so you're worried that if you have a slip, you've failed. You've heard me probably many times talk about this before. Having a slip does not equal failure, but when we're thinking about how we want to proceed, we look at having a drink as the opposite of what we're trying to do here. And so we look at it as failure. So your brain is pushing you toward February drinking plans is not proof that you need alcohol. Like you saying on February 1st, I'm just going to have a drink. This is actually your body, your nervous system, your brain just really wanting certainty. During January, you've been out of your comfort zone. You've been growing, you've been learning, you've been saying no to alcohol when normally you would say yes. And that is very uncomfortable. So you've been uncomfortable for a fair amount of time here. The growth zone. The growth zone means you're probably experiencing some level of discomfort. And so now with this February on the horizon, you have this little opportunity to get into the comfort zone. And in this case, the comfort zone equals just having the glass of wine after a long day because that's what you're used to doing. We want certainty. And when we're creating these new patterns around not drinking, it just feels really uncertain until you do it enough times. And that's your new normal. So I want you to think about when we rush to certainty, you're skipping the integration part. Okay. This is that opportunity to actually change the pattern. So, this is what we focus on in my group coaching program and in my private coaching program. But Feel Good AF is centered around building new patterns, showing up for yourself, and slowing down to decide how you want to respond when you're thinking that you want to drink. It's about, okay, I'm building the new pattern, I'm building the new pattern, and then, oop, the comfort zone comes creeping in. I had a slip, and then I need to just make sure that I don't repeat that old pattern. So the comfort zone can also be referred to here as the old pattern, the one that we are shedding. So you're doing the new thing, you're in the growth zone, and then life gets really hard. You have a case of the effets, and then comfort zone. So you want to be changing the pattern. The most important thing to do when you have a slip is to not repeat it. You need to get right back into the new pattern that you want to create and get that one going and flowing again. Otherwise, when we stay in the old pattern for too long, it's harder to get out of. It's going to push you into discouragement, and it's going to be even more difficult because you're going to be holding feelings of shame, wondering, how did I get here again? And trust me, I had so many moments of those. I would go months during my journey where I was just like, I'm never going to be this person. I'm never going to be the person who can quit drinking. And eventually I would be sick and tired again of how I felt. And I'd be mad at myself, and I would dig myself out of this discouragement ditch. And it would be so incredibly challenging. But when you have a slip and you have like compassion for yourself the next day, and you get right back into the new pattern that you're trying to build, this is how you're going to be successful. This is how the slips happen less and less, and they're no longer 3, 4, 5 days or more like they often were in my case. And that new pattern, the new normal of living alcohol free, starts to just shine, and you'll see that it's possible. Every day that you're doing the new pattern, your confidence grows, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just getting closer and closer to this life that I'm trying to build for myself, this new identity that I'm trying to create for myself. This is really evident, and why my coaching is different than some other programs, because In my group coaching program, you get a lot of access to me. When you join Feel Good AF, we start with a one-on-one session, and that's where we really look at your current patterns, your current day-to-day. I just listen to you and learn everything about your life, whether you travel a lot, whether you have a pretty normal schedule that doesn't change very much, or whether you're all over the place. One week you're here and on weekends you're there, and the next week you're somewhere else. I really listen to all of that. And so that together we can create new routines for you that really fit in your life. And we don't burn it all down and start from scratch. We start really small again so that this feels doable and, more importantly, sustainable for you. We're not worried about never drinking again. We're focused on what are the small changes that I can make now to be successful and not feel like I need to drink at the end of the day, because so much of this is really just about feeling completely depleted at the end of the day. So that's what we do during that first one-on-one. And we create you a short-term action plan that gets iterated on as you move through the program based on how much more comfortable you're becoming with your new routine. For example, if you currently wake up at 7 a.m., we don't start you waking up at 5 a.m. the next day. And it certainly isn't, oh my gosh, I just started my work with Lindsay. I can't drink. That's that perfectionist mindset that I really want you to get over, because I teach you exactly what to do if you have a drink and exactly how to make it useful information and not something that makes you really wallowing in shame. So that is what happens when you join Feel Good AF. We start with that one-on-one, and then you get immediate access to the online community. We drop you into the group coaching calls after the one-on-one, and you have access to self-paced materials that all are designed so that you can rewire your brain and make this uncomfortable thing start to grow more comfortable in your life. You start stacking wins so fast. Within the first 48 hours, you are going to be so incredibly proud of yourself, and you're going to not be able to wait to share it with the other women in the group. That's what I experienced. This is what happens with the women inside. And they are all just like you. These are high achieving women who have very busy lives, a lot on their plate, and they're juggling many, many things. And this is just the one thing that they haven't been able to do on their own. So I know that they're going to wrap their arms around you. Okay. That's a little bit about what it's like and my approach, because the reason why I'm sharing that with you is because I want you to start to think about where you shift from concept in your mind, like there's this concept of living alcohol free, to actually having a path moving forward, not declaring forever. This isn't about never drinking again. That might be the end result, but it's also about you discovering yourself and figuring out, like, what is this identity that I want to be living? Moving forward does not equal creating more rules for yourself, because we all know what happens when we create rules around our drinking. Moving forward equals staying curious instead of reactive. It's really about, I often tell women, acting as an observer of yourself and really seeing, like, okay, what does it feel like to be, sitting on the couch watching TV without a glass of wine? You don't need to decide like right away what February, March, or the rest of your life looks like. It's about being an observer and building your team so that you have the support in the moments where your brain starts negotiating. Those moments where you're like, well, I said I wasn't going to drink today, but here I am. And it's all about having awareness before action, like calming down the autopilot. We're living on autopilot. We're not even thinking, and we're just pouring that glass of wine. This is what we have to stop doing. It's about slowing down, giving yourself a little time between you and pouring that glass, and like having this awareness and slowing down so that you can make a better decision. It's about understanding the pressure that's building all day before the urge to have the glass of wine. This is the other thing that I really focus on with women is I want to know from the moment you wake up until the moment you would normally have your first drink, what that looks like for you. And We are going to pinpoint the exact moments that you need to slow down and take care of yourself. Because how you build self-trust and inner integrity is through small, repeatable choices that benefit you, decisions that serve you. That's how you're going to build self-trust. And this is what stacks wins and builds confidence, which is, I know exactly what you're looking for. We have to let the information that we're collecting about this, like as this observer of ourselves, we have to let that replace any drama that is going on. The goal isn't necessarily like, don't drink. The goal is to stop living in the loop of promising and then slipping and then shaming and then always feeling like you're restarting. Because I know that on February 2nd, February 3rd, February 10th, I know that you don't want to be saying to yourself, I'm starting over. And that's what it often feels like. So I've been there, and I want you to know that this journey is very long. And anytime you have a slip, or even if you have a whole month where you've just been drinking and you're feeling like you're giving up on yourself here, you're not starting over. All of these breaks, all of these moments, every single time that you pause and take care of yourself, that is you getting closer to the version of you who no longer drinks alcohol. So this is your sign. If you're listening and you're thinking, I don't want to undo this, but I also don't want to white knuckle what comes next. This is exactly the moment that I built Feel Good AF for, because this is where you become the version of yourself without shame, without feeling guilty, and without wondering, like, how the heck am I going to do this? How long is this going to take? How come I'm not further along? I don't just throw you into a group. Like I said before, we always start with a one-on-one, even in my group. We slow things down together, and changing your routine in a way that feels good so that at the end of the day, you're not so depleted that you want to drink. We're going to look at real patterns that you have in your life, and we're going to create goals for you that feel doable. This is what every woman says after we have our very first session. They feel relieved, and they always say, this feels doable. So it's super, super important. And then you're going to join the weekly group coaching calls. These are small, intimate calls. I offer 3 every single week, and there's typically anywhere from 3 to 8 women on a call. And I do this intentionally. We talk about real situations. There's no hypotheticals, and you are going to get something to take away with you every single week. We focus on evenings. We focus on the pressure that's building. We're focusing on emotional load, the times when your self-trust breaks down, all of the wins, even though you might be feeling they're not impressive. I often say this about myself. I try to journal in the evenings. I'm not very good at it, but I try to write down 3 wins for the day. Oftentimes, I'll be looking at the wins and I'm like, this doesn't feel significant enough. And it's like, yes, it is significant. We have to start being impressed with all the things that we're doing, because to other people, they're probably a lot and they're amazing. And so, okay, there's also this in-between support. We have an online community, and the women share and they chat, and there's no requirement to be on in there, but it's definitely helpful. And it's also not like blowing up 24/7. These are also very busy women. And you also get private check-ins with me. There might be something specific that you want to unpack and you don't want to wait, or you don't want to bring it up into the group. You're going to get that access to me. This is definitely why my program is different, because you get a lot of access to me during our time together. You're going to have earlier awareness, you're going to have so much more steadiness, and you're going to have a lot less fear. This is probably the most important thing around messing up. Most women come in wanting to stop thinking about alcohol all day, and that is what it gives you. And that's what I want for you, because I know that that is the mental gymnastics. It's not just about drinking every day at 5 or 6 o'clock at night. It's about thinking about it all day. It's about waking up saying, I won't drink today. And then by noon, already kind of creating your plan to justify it. I know it because I lived it. Dry January is ending soon, and you don't have to rush to undo it or lock yourself into a decision around it. This month is giving you information. I want you to use it, okay? I want you to really spend the time to reflect and think about what Dry January has done for you. So you always know how to reach me. You can send me a message on Instagram. You can email me at info@lindsayhennicky.com. The link is in the show notes. And you can also set up a discovery call with me anytime, and we can talk about what this would look like in your life. If you're interested in joining Feel Good AF, I have room for you always. I want you here, and I know that it's going to change your life, and you're going to get to the other side of alcohol so much faster than if you did it yourself. There's no pressure here. If now isn't the moment, let this week be about paying attention. Pay attention to what is going on inside your mind and your body as you're closing out your Dry January. Okay? No more rules, just support. Think about what it is that you need. Okay, I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Feel Good Alcohol Free podcast. If this episode landed for you, it would mean a lot if you left a review or take a quick screenshot of it and share it on social media. That's how this show reaches more women who are ready to stop living in the drinking loop and start leading themselves with confidence again. I'm on a mission to change the way high-achieving women think about alcohol, because you don't need more willpower or more rules around your drinking. You need real support, real tools, and the truth about what's actually possible for you. So keep showing up for yourself, keep telling the truth about what you want. And remember, the life you want isn't found in a glass or a bottle of wine. It's built in the decisions that you can stand behind, the ones that you feel really good about. My DMs are always open, and I can't wait to get to know you better. I will see you next week in the next episode.